Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
My name is Melissa Borg, and I wrote the book, A Single Girl's Guide to Wedding Survival, which is a novel. I've been writing for a few years. So here's a little excerpt from my book from the very beginning. Victoria slumped back into her chair. Desi loved to surprise people with these news flashes. You think everything you do is important. This is. Uneasiness crept into Victoria's stomach, unsettling the shame lava, and made her sit up straighter. I'm getting married! Desi sang her news to the childhood taunt of na-na-na-na-na-na. Shrieks poured out of the receiver, and Victoria's brain echoed her baby sister's marriage announcement. Desi, only 4 years younger than Victoria, had always led a bejeweled tiara life. The skinny jeans, the looks, and the men drooling after her. Cats hacking up hairballs would be better than these happy harpy squeals. Isn't it great? Me in a white dress, amazing. If her sister had a spirit animal, it would have been a rooster, since she was full of egotistical cries. Dread set in. This sounded real. Engagement. 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 Desi's sharp tone cut through her rising turmoil. Can you hear me? Aren't you happy for me? Before her sister started spewing out how Victoria never cares about me, or she only wants to ruin my happiness, or some other lame line Desi has been repeating and screaming since childhood. She better find her rah, rah, rah switch and cheer. So lie. Victoria swallowed her second helping of jealousy for lunch. Lucky you. You've been with Greg since Thanksgiving. A whole 4 months, right?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Minds of Authors, and happy birthday celebration. It is Tuesday, and we have another amazing author with us today. We have the amazing Miss Melissa. Hi, sweetie. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great.
I am so excited you're here. I'm so excited to hear about this book. I can't wait to dive in. So let's stop playing. Go ahead. How did this book came about? Give us a little insight.
So this book actually came about as a kind of an unhappy situation, as my mother got really, really sick and was told, hey, you got 90 days to live. So I was working on a different book, a big fantasy series, and I went, this is way too serious. I need something light, funny, and that can make me laugh. So out came this book. I wrote it in about 8 weeks, the first draft, and I spent the next 10 years editing and learning actually the craft of writing. It was kind of my guinea pig book.
For a guinea pig book, this is a lot of love. So I love it. Tell me, what is the story about? Because siblings, family, and marriages, it's always a recipe for disaster, but so much fun. Tell us about the story.
I had a lot of fun writing this story, and there's some really fun shenanigans with Victoria, who's the main character. She's 25 years old and had never actually been on a real date when she gets a phone call that her sister's getting married in 3 weeks.
Oh, as an older sister, I can understand why this would be traumatizing in so many different ways. Granted, I have brothers, so it's a little odd and different, but you created such a beautiful chemistry between them of like the whole friction. The two of them fighting, the two of them trying to, whether like it or not, compete with each other.
Right. True family dynamics that we all have to deal with.
I was going to say, are you drawing from personal inspiration?
Oh, my middle sister's already told me, she's like, I'll just take a cut, please. I'll take 5% because I know you're going to use conversations we have. Not going to lie, my family's funny. So yes, I did lift some quotes from my family.
Okay. That's absolutely perfect and amazing. I love it. And the fact that they can recognize themselves is even better.
Well, she's like, if it's about sisters, I'm the pain in the butt sister. So I'm here. It's about me, isn't it? I'm like, wow, it really is about you, isn't it?
So I love the fact that I'm just going to embrace it. We're just
Yes.
going to own this and go for there.
She's like, as long as I get a cut, I hope it's fantastic. I hope you have a great time with it. Why don't you go out and market that? I'll take some of that, please.
I'm seeing where these characters are coming about.
Yep.
10 years, you're going through a huge family situations and you wanted humor. How much into the humor world did you dove into this book?
For me, I have come to recognize that I struggle developing a story until I find what I lovingly call the sass partner. The main character or side characters, there has to be one character that they just have lots of dialogue, lots of funny hits, but that keeps the story moving along. In this story, it's actually Victoria and her best friend, Sandra. Those scenes, I still laugh. I'm not even going to say how many rounds of edits I've gone through on this book, but I can still read this book 10 years later and laugh.
You went down the rabbit hole. You went and put it together.
It was a long, hard, dark rabbit hole. There were years where I'm like, I hate you. Why did I decide to do this? But I love the book. It still makes me laugh. And I enjoy it getting out there and showing it to people.
What made you stick with it?
Some days it was mainly because I don't like unfinished projects. Other days it was like, I will do this. And I was committed. What actually got me over the finish line was I was entirely tired of people asking me, when's your book coming out? Because I talk about it all the time. All of my vacations were always on some type of writing class, writing retreat. So finally everybody's like, Melissa, all you do is do writing stuff all day long. When are you going to publish that book? And I'm like, shut up, I will finally do it.
I love the fact that you had a little peer pressure going on to get you motivated.
Oh yeah, not going to lie. There were people hounding me going, we want our copy, please.
Speaking of people hounding, who is your target audience for this? Who were you looking at?
I would say women in their mid-20s, early 30s, but it's so universal, a lot of the themes. It's about, sisterhood, it's about parents, it's about really what do you want to do when you grow up? It happens when you have a dream and you decide, that's really hard, and because life sometimes you just got to stop and not pursue things. How do you kind of get yourself back on track?
And that's okay. You're allowed to change your mind and do something else.
Right. Or say, you know what? I should have finished that. Maybe I should go back to it. So it's got a lot of very universal themes, but typically 25 to 30.
I love that combination. You're covering a lot of grounds and it doesn't go out of season. Let's be honest.
Yep.
Sisterhood, sister issues, sibling rivalry. As much as people care to say, no, it doesn't go out of season.
Yep. And it's not a romance. So I almost wanted to put this is not a romance, like at the very beginning of my blurb. If you think this is a romance, keep turning. This is not it. I will disappoint.
Not a romance, what will you call it? What is your genre then?
I typically call it a women's fiction because it's dealing with family, it's dealing with life purpose, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and just trying to figure out what it is that you want, being in that driver's seat.
How long have you been writing in total?
Even in this 10 years, I started multiple manuscripts in between the 10 years, but they were very unfocused and they were still trying to figure out what I was doing with them. I still got more books in me, still got some in me.
You open the doors. Tell us, what is your project you're working on now?
The next one, I know it does not sound humorous at all, but it's dealing with grief and how do we process it. One of my writing instructors that I've worked with for a couple of years, we had this conversation. She's like, it's hard to find those books really that deal with real things. Like when we go to read books, we want to learn from the journey that the character's on. And I said, okay, that's a lot of pressure. I don't know how I can deal with this pressure. She goes, no, I really think you can marry your humor side and make things that are very funny, but really impactful. And I was like, oh, man, a lot of pressure on me. So she's convinced me that I'm going to write a book about grief for the next one.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then she came up with a really good one that's a different story. I've got two books kind of flipping back and forth. They both deal with grief in different ways, but one of them is called Snack Bag Funeral. And I went, what is this amazing title? Because it was my writing instructor that brought it up. And I went, you're writing this book, right? She goes, no, I don't have time. I'm teaching people. I'm going to write a book on how to write books. And I'm like, can I use that title? She's like, yeah. And I went, okay, I don't know what this book is, but that's amazing. So Couple things in fire. Don't know what they're really going to be yet. Still, as you can see behind me, I've got lots of things on my boards.
Tell me, where did you find your motivation? Because the title is precious. I have people that find motivation from covers. Where does yours come from? How do you find yourself inspired?
So for me, normally it's a line. I'm a dialogue person. When people are like, how many pages is your book? And I'm like, don't worry, there's lots of white spaces. There's a lot of dialogue, a lot of character movement. But for me, it's all about the humor within situations and verbal sparring. So anytime I come across really good phrases of things, like I'll just jot them down. Or if somebody tells me a really funny story, someone told me a story about a raccoon stealing this cake from her front porch. And she goes, you haven't lived until you see little blue footprints leading away from your porch. And I went, I'm stealing that story and I'm using it because that's amazing.
It's such a beautiful mental picture because you can see it. You're like,
yeah, it was so
I
visual.
can see that. For your first book, in terms of this incredible fun family dynamics, have you thought about making it a series?
The next book that I'm planning is a series, but it's only like tied by some of the characters that you meet in the first one. It isn't the main character through all of them.
I've seen it done really well for other authors, and it's a lot of fun because it's a whole different perspective. You're still in the same universe, you're still in the same playing field, but it gives you a whole different dynamics of like, ooh, that's a hot mess in that side of the house.
Yeah.
Talk to me, sweetie. When did you decide to start publishing?
So I always kind of knew I was going to end up writing something. I still remember one Christmas when I was in high school, a friend of mine and I wrote a really awful cross-genre book that like I would write a chapter, she would write a chapter. And I just knew at that point that I loved words and that I loved telling stories. And I've been in every type of storytelling you can be in. I've been in theater, I've directed, I've acted, it's just all over the place. When I finally found writing, I was like, hey, this is really cool. I can be all of the characters in my own head. I can bring the funny sass language and I can direct it. I can show the pictures in my head and write them into words and hopefully someone else can get it. So I kind of always knew that I was going to publish and then took some seasoning.
Talk to us. If you had a brand new author that you had to give an advice, what would you tell them?
Edits are your friend. I first wrote this manuscript. I deluded myself. I was like, it's so good. I'm just going to go find an agent. I went out and looked for an agent, went to my first writing conference, like within the first 6 months of after writing the manuscript. And I got it picked up by a couple people and they were like, it's really good. It's got a lot of potential. And I didn't really understand the pieces of how to write. And now I kind of get to the point where I'm like, I just need the words on the page because then I can go back and I can edit it and then I can make it what I want. Sometimes it's actually the typing that's the hardest part, the actual getting it on the page for the first time. Because then I'm like, whew, I don't have to create a blank page and put words on it. Now I can go in and I can be like, what do I want out of this scene? What do I want out of these lines? What's really important? And kind of highlight it. But when I first started, I was like, edit, no, it's beautiful, it's okay. And it's like, no, it gets better every time. So just embrace that editing is writing.
That is so good. I don't think most people enjoy it. It's having somebody critique it, tear it apart, and put it back together. And they're like, ooh.
So I will say critiquing can be difficult. But one of the biggest things I got from when I was an actor was take the note. As an actor, we were trained that you had to take the note, whether it is, and let me tell you, it is not always pleasant to take that note. And you say, thank you. And sometimes the thank you may sound angry, but when you come back to that note, like a couple days later, after you can kind of give yourself a little distance, recognize its ego, and come back and it's like, curses, they were right. This is horrible. Doesn't make sense. Fine, I'll fix it. And then when you fix it, you're like, okay, now I can really say a heartfelt thank you and not a thank you.
I so much appreciate that because it is. Critique is hard.
Oh, the critique is the worst in some ways because you're like, okay, all right, I'm going to send this beautiful thing off. I just want somebody out of my 90,000 words to come back and just be like, you did good. And even though if they do say you did good, and then you hear, and here's how to make it better, it's like, no, I don't want to. You channel your inner tantrum of a 5-year-old. But then when you can get over it, it's just so amazing when you're like, okay, let me reread that again. That was a lot at that point in time, but let me go back. I'll revisit you, my friend. And then you can just actually make it work because you need those extra eyes. There is nothing wrong. And sometimes it's okay to say no to the note. Where I've said no to notes where people are like, this needs to be this way, because my book is not a romance. But my old title, people were thinking it was a romance. So they'd be like, where's the hot guy? And I'm like, not it. And so I just have learned, I'm like, thank you for that note. This isn't my genre.
So appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that you're able to request people to take the feedback, but at the same time be able to comfortable and says, it doesn't fit this book. And that's okay.
Yeah, but you have to be real with yourself and not say every note doesn't pertain. But there are going to be some notes where you're like, that's just not my voice, or that's not what I want out of this scene. And you, as the author, it's your job to figure out what really is that piece. But just have that clear boundary where it's like, no, that doesn't fit with this. If I had been going that way, that would have been a great note. I would have picked it up. So just always being really grateful to whoever's giving you that note, but know your boundaries.
It's such a practical advice and very much leaves you with the opportunity to say, you have options here. Oh. It's not one way or another.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll go back and I'll be like, let's have a conversation about this piece of it. Like, what were you meaning? I took it as blah, blah, blah. Was that right? And sometimes it may come out that, no, they hadn't actually thought of what I was working. I love that I have some really good proofreaders behind me that are just like, they're willing to have that conversation where I just am like, hey, got 10 minutes? I have a note and I'm just not sure what you were thinking. And sometimes they'll blow my mind, like in that conversation. And I'm like, oh, that's what those words meant. Got it. Yeah, that changes everything. Agreed. Okay, let me make the note.
I love that you're open to the suggestions. And I love that you're very comfortable with where your style is at now. And you're comfortable knowing that it fits or it doesn't fit.
Yeah, I still remember one of the first times I was working with a really respected writer of mine. She was working on something. And at one point, I just looked at her and I went, oh my, wait, is this what your story is about? I'm like, we've been talking about it for 2 days and I didn't even understand to this point. And she's like, well, it's a surprise. And it happens in this part of the book. And I'm like, if you waited for that surprise, I was like, I would throw your book. Like, I'd be so mad. And she just turned to me in true New Jersey style. She's like, you're not my reader. And I went, respect that. Because no, if I saw that, I would be angry. I wouldn't think it's cool. I wouldn't think it's funny. I'd think, dang him. And so she was just real clear. And I still vividly remember that conversation. And I was like, yeah, you can't please everybody. And just find your readers, find your tribe who like it, and just know that they're going to come back every time because they like what you're doing. And if there's people that don't like it, that's okay. Not everybody likes cheddar cheese, and I love cheddar cheese. And if you're like, hey, I'm not a cheddar fan, I'll be like, you might not want to stop by for snack time at my house.
That is so cool. It is so true. Tell me, who is your favorite author?
That is a loaded question. I just love so many things. Like, it's a joke in my family that if it has words, I'm going to end up reading it, whatever it is, magazine, newspaper article, research article, a book. So I will say I've never been a big, huge romance fan until I found Katie McAllister. And the only reason I ever picked it up was because my family, I was living at home and I hear my elder sister laughing hard, like couldn't breathe. And I went, okay, you're laughing. Like, I'm in. If you have a book that's making you laugh that hard, I'm going to read it. That's the type of things that I'm always looking for. And so I walked in and I was like, what are you reading? And she's like, this book is hilarious. And I went, oh, it's romance. I don't like romance. But you're laughing that hard. All right, I'll try it. And she was kind of my gateway drug into reading romances because I was like, well, if I liked that, what else in the genre of romance that I have not been into? So Katie McAllister's one, Jenny Cruzy, who is an older author. I don't remember that she's put out anything recently, but she's hilarious. And then I used to read a lot of epic fantasy. So of course I read all of Robert Jordan for The Wheel of Time. So I just like lots of different things. If it's any genre and it makes you laugh, send me a link because I will read it.
I'm all about the fact that you are very open. In fact, I love words and this is what I'm looking for. So I'm all into this. Sweetie, I could talk to you all day because I have a blast to chatting with you. But before you leave us, Tell us, where can our listeners find you? Where they can get more about you? Where they can get your books? Where are you at?
Okay, I am at Melissa Borg, melissabborg.com. And you can find everything about me there. My newsletter's there. I sell my book through Amazon. So A Single Girl's Guide to Wedding Survival. I'm right there. There is no one else with that title, can guarantee. It's very long, but very funny. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Listeners can find you anywhere. They can just Google your name, find the book, find your connections, and truly connect with your works. So we have to do lightning round before you go. Are you ready?
Bring it. Bring it, DC. I don't know what you're going to throw at me, but I'm ready.
Easy peasy. Don't think too much about this. Let's see how you do. Cold drinks or hot drinks?
Yes, hot.
I was like, yes to what? What does that mean?
Well, the answer is yes. I will do both, but I guess hot because my hands are always cold.
I'm with you. That's a really good way to look at it. Spicy or sweet?
Spicy. Like
nice.
No questions.
I know, that was a quick one. I was like, okay. Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek. Hello, my last name is Borg. B-O-R-G. Hello.
That is so
the
true.
Queen is in the house.
That is so true. Oh my God, yes.
My family's so weird. We've numbered each other. Okay.
No, you didn't.
Oh, we have a Borg Queen, and we actually have a Borg number giver. So as friends came into our family, they came in like a Borg ship where they were 3 of 5. Yeah. My friends then, and now when they meet each other, they're like, what's your number? When were you assimilated into the Borg clan? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that is awesome. Yeah, total points. I'm absolutely on board with this. Okay. Cats or dogs?
Yes. All right.
All of the above?
I have 2 cats. You most likely heard him complaining earlier, but we're a dual house.
I like that. Dual house is a great one. Here's a little different one. If your life had a theme song, what would it be?
I really like this question a lot. And maybe I'm going to have to say Kung Fu fighting.
Oh my God, it's so cool. Why?
Because the first time I heard that song, it was in a play. I thought it was a made up song. And then fast forward like 3 or 4 years later, and I hear it on a radio station, and I was like, holy crap, this is an actual real song. Like, the absurdity of that song, A, and B, you cannot listen to that song and not be in a good mood. I'm sorry, you just can't. Because all I can imagine every time I'm hearing that song is people Kung Fu fighting in my head. Yeah, that's right.
I'm going to have this song stuck in my head. I'm so mad at you because now I'm like doing the dance.
You're welcome.
Listeners, you can be mad at her too because now I'm literally wanting to like, so we're all Kung Fu fighting. Thanks.
That's
Thanks.
right. All day long, if you're thinking Kung Fu, you're welcome.
Oh, the power of authors is just getting in your head and you can't get them out. You were doing so well. Oh, Lord have mercy.
Oh, DC, this is why we're friends. It's okay. It's okay.
This is why we're deaf friends. Absolutely. I need friends to keep me right here with songs stuck in my head. Lord have mercy. Sweetie, do you have any closing remarks for us? Tell us anything you want to share.
I really appreciate you having me on. This has been really a fun time, and I hopefully look forward to hooking up with some of your listeners. And it's been so much fun just chatting about what I love so much, which is my writing and all of the authory things. This is pretty much where my brain sits all day long when I'm not on my day job. It's like, what new thing can I think about today? So I love talking about writing. So thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so excited you came. Thank you so much, sweetie. Glad you joined us. To our listeners, I'm hoping you had as much fun as I did because this went by extremely quickly. So
I have no idea that could go that fast.
Absolutely a blast. So my friends, remember, it is birthday week celebration. We're going to have another offer tomorrow. So you guys don't want to miss it. Come back, enjoy the fun. Miss Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, I will see you again tomorrow with another fabulous author. Bye, everyone.